Alright, I've been trying to talk about a wide range of bands on this channel, but I think it's been long enough that I can talk about Between the Buried and Me again. I've been listening obsessively to all of their albums since Colors came out, and I'm still always finding new, cool things in their amazingly intricate music. I have a quiz for you if you're a real Between the Buried and Me freak like me. What happens after this little riff in Colors? I've asked this type of question before in another video about different music, and once again, I regret to inform you that it is a trick question. The answer is that this little riff shows up in two very different places in Colors, and it's followed by different material in each case. The first time it's at the end of Son of Nothing and is one of the last stages in a long transition leading into Ants of the Sky. It also shows up much later near the end of White Walls, right before the big chords that start the cathartic ending sequence of the album. These two sections, which happen about 36 minutes apart on the album, both build momentum leading up to two of the most memorable moments in Colors. I'm going to talk about how these sections are built up from a few ideas, and then talk about the many links between them, many of which are not so obvious. One of the main things that's kept me coming back to Between the Buried and Me's music is its linearity. They have literally hundreds of really great riffs that act like most riffs do. That is, they show up and they're repeated a few times before moving on to something else. But they also have a lot of extended linear transitional sections that, unlike traditional riffs, contain no exact internal repetition. I'm going to talk a little bit about the processes of motivic variation and transformation out of which these linear sections are built. For another angle on this, check out my first Between the Buried and Me video. When I say that nothing is repeated exactly, I don't mean that it's all completely new material. They do string a lot of new ideas together pretty quickly, but they also do a lot of things with each given idea. I'll talk through Son of Nothing first to show what I'm talking about. First, we get this. The rhythmic pattern and pitch contour shape stay the same, but it gets moved up the fretboard several times. We can hear that it's the same idea, but it's getting higher and higher. Then we get a short open string thing, which shows up twice, but the second time the last beat gets chopped off. Then we get a longer sequence of things where it's the same idea, but eighth notes keep being added and subtracted, so that the pattern first lasts for 10 eighth notes, then 11, then 9, then 12. A similar thing happens with the next chunk of stuff. This little ascending three-note idea gets both extended and contracted rhythmically, and it moves downward in pitch. Which brings us into the moment I started the video with, this launching off vamp, whose threefold repetition builds momentum for the final stage of the transition into Ants of the Sky. The takeaway with all of this is that we get several distinct ideas in a row without returning to any of them, and that each of these ideas appears rapidly in several versions, either transformed in pitch, in rhythm, or in both. I find that this motivic tightness and constant variation is one of the many great joys of Between the Buried and Me's music. I find that I'm constantly being offered not only new ideas, but also multiple different perspectives on these ideas. fun doesn't stop at the level of individual songs. Most of their albums since Colors are full of transformations of motives that happen across much longer spans of time. I mentioned at the start that launching off vamp shows up in both Son of Nothing and White Walls. The similarities between these two sections run much deeper though. First, there's a preview in Son of Nothing a little before where I started talking about that is a shortened version of the first riff in White Walls. The sections from these two songs have more or less the same shape. The links between the individual chunks of these sections are fun, and not all of them are very obvious. First, there's this chugging ascending thing. I didn't notice this link until I played the album on guitar, but the White Walls version is basically a partially reversed, truncated version of the Son of Nothing one. Continues onto one of my favorite Between the Buried and Me micro riffs ever, where it keeps climbing and simultaneously subtracting 1/8 note, again reminiscent of what happens at the corresponding point in Son of Nothing. Here it goes from 9/8 notes to 8 to 7 to 6 to 4. Then we get an open string thing. This then gets expanded. And then we get to that same launching off vamp. Which this time leads into a streamlined, simplified version of the descending run thing from Son of Nothing. Except here, instead of moving on to more transitional material, it continues on to those big, satisfying chords. So here's the whole White Walls version of this section. This may have been hard to follow, and maybe some of these similarities and transformations are less believable than others. The question of what counts as similar in music, especially talking about motivic transformations, can be very complicated and blurry. But I wanted to give a sense of both a few of the basic transformational techniques Between the Buried and Me uses, so moving ideas around in pitch, adding to them or subtracting from them rhythmically, reversing parts of them, etc., and give a sense of the rich, complex ways in which these different sections can relate to each other. Here those two sections are one last time side by side, or as side by side as I can make them without playing them on top of each other, which I don't think would tell us very much. If you notice just one more connection between them than you did before you watched this, I will consider this video a success. have my sincere thanks for watching this far. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go listen to colors for the 100,000th time. See ya.